Hi everyone, welcome back to Science on Trial and Error. We have a fresh new episode for you. Yes, it is published with a bit of a delay, caused yet again by my health acting out, but it is an important episode and I wanted to make sure that it is prepared well. First, let me introduce my guest properly. Today I am joined by Mojtaba Tavakoli. Mojtaba comes from Afghanistan. He obtained his bachelor's degree in biology from University of Vienna, and he is currently pursuing a PhD in the group of Professor Johann Danzl at IST Austria. In his research project, he's looking into developing methods to study biological samples with more precision using expansion microscopy. It's fascinating and cutting-edge work. I can't wait for you to hear more about it. Ever since I started this podcast, I wanted to invite Mojtaba as my guest. I've gotten to know Mo at IST, and I was always impressed with his attitude, the openness towards people and science, treating every experience as an opportunity to learn something, as well as with his positivity and optimism. His story is full of sad moments, but he chooses to take the goodness out of it and to be grateful for them. I wanted to share his message with you. Still, truth be told, I was hesitant about publishing this episode now. We recorded it a few weeks ago, right before the situation in Afghanistan became so critical. I have talked to Mo and we decided to run it to give you a chance to hear his story, hear about his passion for science and his experiences as a refugee in Austria. I'm very grateful to Mojtaba for his honesty and vulnerability. It was definitely a very special interview for me. Before we move on to the episode, please consider supporting the organizations providing humanitarian aid for people in Afghanistan. You can find links on our social media channels. And now, please welcome Mojtaba Tavakoli. Hi, Mojtaba. Thank you for accepting the invitation to be the guest on the podcast. I'm very happy we can chat.
Hi, I'm also very happy to be here and honored. And I'm really looking very much forward to it.
So you are currently in the lab, even though it's the weekend. How are you doing? And is this a normal thing for you to work on the weekend, or are you just doing it from time to time?
It's my daily bread, you know. I'm basically sleeping here. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, I don't come every weekend. So it's like basically when experiments are running and I can't interrupt them. So I just come, and I usually use this also to do sport. Like, you know, I bike here, then bike back, or I go here for a run and so on. So I combine it with my activities. So I also try to enjoy it. So,
That's nice. And are you one of the people that listen to music when you work?
I do. I usually listen to it when there's no one. I listen to it loud.
Yeah.
You know, I play my favorite music and try, and I'll also dance to it. You know, while I do the experiment.
Nice.
So, but when there are people around in the lab, I like listen to it privately.
And what kind of music do you listen to at work?
So it's pop.
Okay.
And I also listen to Afghan pop. That's where I come from. So I grew up with it. And also to Western pop. So I combine it. It's a super nice mix.
That's cool. That's really cool. You have to send me some links. I would be happy to check it out.
I'm super curious how you would like it, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I'm quite open about my musical taste. So let's see. Okay, so I usually start with the current work. So if that's fine with you, we could go with that.
Sure.
I know that you are a PhD student at IST. That's where we met. And you work with Professor Danzl. I roughly know what you do, but I would be very curious to hear more about it. I know you're doing very interesting, super resolution microscopy and also the expansion microscopy, right?
Yes.
So Yeah, I would love to hear about the technology, of course, but also what your project specifically is looking into.
Well, yeah, as you said, I'm in the group of Professor Johann Danzl, and our daily bread is, so to say, is the microscope, the light microscope. What we do with the light microscope is that we use it, we develop it further to study biological samples with more details and with more precision.
Mm-hmm.
The problem in the field of light microscopy is that with the conventional light microscopes, so the ones that we have, for example, the bioimaging facility, most of them offer a limited resolution, and that is due to diffraction of light that we use to excite certain colors in our samples. But if you want to go deep into the structure of our samples, for example, if you want to know how two cells are communicating to each other in a certain environment, we need to study this communication with more precision, and that is usually way below than the resolution limit. So what I do in my project is that I develop methods based on hydrogels.
Mm-hmm.
I mainly work with fixed samples, and also the hydrogel-based methods are only, you can combine it with fixed samples. So what we use is we combine two different strategies. The diapers that we use for babies, they have a very interesting compound that absorbs water, right? And it gains in volume.
Yeah.
And the other thing is like the hydrogels, also, for example, our contact lenses. We combine these two type of methods with each other to gain more insight into our samples. And by doing that, we physically expand the entire tissue. So now another analogy would be a balloon.
Mm-hmm.
When you blow it, it gets bigger and bigger. And now if you would just make a point before blowing it up and then look at it after it has been blown up, then you would realize maybe more details of that dot. That is exactly the effect that we also achieve when we do expansion microscopy.
So you're generating more space between the structures?
Exactly.
And you use this gel after fixation of the sample?
So yes, we fix the samples, then we treat the samples with some solutions so we prepare them for this hydrogel embedding and then expansion. And the interesting part is that at the end of this, we can use the very same microscope that is diffraction limited to achieve higher resolution.
Okay, yeah,
right?
I see.
We don't need any other additional setup for it. We don't need to play around with the optics.
You are looking at cells? Any specific type of cells?
No, actually. So what we always try to do when we develop a method, we want to have it as universal as possible, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we want to make sure that it's applicable to different type of tissues, brain tissues, for example, bacteria, worms, organoids, so that the entire scientific field and community can apply it and make progress in their field.
Okay, correct me if I'm wrong, but I really don't have much experience with these technologies. By using this and generating the space, you can separate the structures within the cells or within the tissues, and then you gain more resolution to look at specific points in the cells. Because of, I guess, the homogeneity of the hydrogel, you can know how far they were initially from each other in the cell. You can know this distance.
You're referring now to the expansion factor.
Okay.
So by how much fold you expand your samples.
Yes.
Exactly. And that is, you can modulate that, right, with different parameters. For example, the hydrogel chemistry that you apply, the components that you use there, you can use different concentration of those components. You can make it like expand, 10-fold. You can make it expand 4-fold. And then if you really are interested into the nanostructure of your biological samples, then you may need to expand it even more than, let's say, 20 or 30-fold. And that's what we also do. Like we have certain type of expansion methods developed that can achieve up to really almost single-digit nanometer resolution with that diffraction limited microscope. So the idea is to make it as easy applicable, as easy reachable as possible for the community, so that we don't need to invest millions of euro to buy a setup, a microscope, but
Of
rather
course.
it's super funny actually and super interesting, because we buy 3 or 4 of these components, which are, I don't know, 100 euros each, and then you have them for a year. You can aliquot them and freeze them, and then you thaw them when you need. And then with these 3 or 4 components, you can achieve actually, the same resolution or almost the same resolution as if you would invest like millions of euros. But of course, the disadvantage is that you can only apply it to fixed samples, right?
Yeah.
Whereas like on the optic side, if you would achieve this resolution, you can also use living samples.
You told about the advantages of the method. What are the challenges of actually developing it as you go?
So the challenge is definitely to control for all the distortions that can be introduced into your samples, to also make sure that what you see is real and not some artifacts of the methods that you introduce, right? And that is really what we are controlling for with different type of samples also. Let's say we established a protocol, the method with a brain sample, brain tissue, and then we also apply organoids, we cultured cells, I don't know, fly brain, whatsoever, to investigate also whether we see is also constant across different samples, and also control for the artifacts. So we acquire usually an image before all the treatments, and then acquire an image after the treatments, after the expansions, and then compare those to, how much difference has been introduced into the sample. Then based on that, there will be a feedback loop, so to say, to us, what we should change to make these distortions, so to say, as minimal as possible.
If you could tell about the scale of things that you're looking at, how small things can you actually see when you use this method? Would it be structures like organelles within the cell? How small can you get?
So we can definitely visualize 15 to 20 nanometers at the moment, right? And those are, for example, structures like space between the spots where 2 cells are talking to each other, like at the pre and post synapse. So that is around 20, 25 nanometers that we can nicely visualize with this method. But the idea is really to go down, like where we can localize single proteins, which are 10 of nanometers.
Wow, this is awesome.
Yeah, when I heard about it at the very beginning, I was like, seriously, that is such a genius thing, And then I approached Hans, like my PI, and I said, well, I would love to do a rotation, And he was like, yeah, sure, come, let's do a rotation. I felt like in love with this method from the very beginning, and that's why I really enjoy what I do.
I mean, it's really cutting edge, and I guess, it can be quite stressful and frustrating trying to develop something completely new, but hearing you talk about it, it seems like you are moving forward and things are working out quite well. So this is really, really exciting. And you actually didn't have experience before with this kind of technology, right? You were doing something different.
Yes, so I've never worked really that much with microscope before. During my bachelor time, I maybe have used only once or twice the microscope, to be honest, before that.
And the resolution that you're getting, is it comparable to this other nanoscale kind of microscopes, the storms and palms?
Exactly, yes. So we also work with STAT microscope, with single molecule localization microscopies like STORM, Palm. So the physicists in our group, like they are developing those type of microscopy based on the optics. So our group is super diverse. We have physicists.
Sounds like it, yeah.
Yes, we have data scientists, computer scientists, engineers, chemists, biologists across the field, name it. And that is so interesting. You learn so much from each other. as I said, I've never worked like so much with microscope, or I haven't used it also that much. But here, I learned so much from my colleagues, and I appreciate that so much. It's just a gift, seriously.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of exchange between you guys, and I guess this helps with getting the right perspective, how to actually approach this kind of work, which is very pioneering. So yeah, when you joined IST, did you already knew about this group? I think you were one of the first students in the group, right?
Yes. So I joined IST in 2017. I didn't know about Hans before. The first 3 rotations I did like with other professors. And then during the third rotations, I met a group member of Hans. We were always in the cell culture at the same time, and then we were talking about, what are you doing actually, microscopy. And I was like, why microscopy? What is so interesting about it? You just go to it in image, like, oh no, Mo, come and see what we can do with it. There, I really realized that microscopy is not just, a device that you use for acquiring images, but you can do a lot of other stuff. I'm super lucky and I'm happy with that decision that we made back then. So
I'm very glad.
I really enjoy what I do.
This is awesome. All right, so now you are a very committed microscopy person, but as you mentioned before in your bachelor's, you were doing a completely different thing, and I think you were working more on cancer cells, right?
Yes, during my bachelor, I was really interested. I'm still interested in cancer research. So it's like, a transition. I learn methods, I develop methods, which I would love to apply during my postdoc then afterwards. During my bachelor, I was worked mostly with cancer cells and investigating different pathways. But I will go back to that field after my PhD.
Yeah, this sounds like a great way to use a great technology to study the topic that really interests you.
Yes.
I really like it. Yeah, as you said, you work on cancer cells and you did your bachelor's at the University of Vienna. And what I found very impressive is that already during your high school, you were working a bit in the lab, right? So how did this happen? And actually, did your interest in science started in high school, or was it something that you had inside you earlier on?
So actually, I was as a kid very, how do you put it? I was always asking questions like, if you mix oil with water, why they don't get mixed? Like, what is the difference? What is there?
The curiosity was there.
Exactly. I was super curious. And then when I finished secondary school, I got more interested into chemistry. And luckily in Austria, we have this system, like if you want to be more focused on a specific subject during your high school, you can do that. So I was then looking for some chemistry high school. We definitely had like 30 hours lab work.
That's really a lot.
That was super exciting for me because, you have this theory class and then you do it also by yourself, right, afterwards. So yeah, I started pipetting super early and I loved it,
Why did you decide to work not in chemistry, but actually in biology?
Because I think that when we combine different fields together, we can approach certain stuff from different angles. You might realize different stuff that you weren't aware of before. So yeah, during my third grades at high school, we also had actually molecular biology, biochemistry, and genetics. Those were super interesting for me. Using these restriction enzymes to cut in genes, cutting out, I was like, wow, it's like a scissor. You cut out something and then you take a glue. I was like, that's crazy. So yeah, that was actually, I think the reason why I then decided to move towards biology. And to be honest, it helped me a lot. I had this premature knowledge in chemistry and then switched to biology. There I could use all those chemistry know-how to move forward into like during my study. And also now during my PhD, I realized that this 5 years of chemistry high school helps me so much, also for my project.
Oh, yeah, in this group, I guess it's useful to have this background as well.
Yes. I'm like, I want to learn more and more new stuff by changing fields and then combining them.
Yeah.
And that's why really I'm looking so much forward to my postdoc, so that I can combine all this stuff and apply it to certain biological questions.
So you're planning to continue in academia, that's a certain for you?
Yeah, so basic research, I can't imagine doing anything different than staying in the lab, and being curious what will come out of these experiments and how to move forward. So I will stay in academia.
Forever sold to science.
Exactly. My soul is sold to science.
So a postdoc, and then would you like to be a PI? Would you like to be a group leader?
I didn't think about that at this moment. To be honest, I think I will give it a try. I'm open to it.
That's good. I think that's the most important thing in this work that we are doing, to keep an open mind. And clearly in this conversation, I can see that that's your attitude all the way, right? You are not really limiting yourself. I think in the long term, it will only help you. In all of this, there's a way of kind of gaining skills to build towards something bigger and to make you better scientists. So I think this is a very nice way to think about your career.
So for me, the research per se is very interesting. But yeah, as I said, I love science. I do science because I really enjoy it. I think the power of science is really in combining different field of it, or cooperation between it.
Yeah, the collaborations definitely make it stronger, and also I would say make the progress faster as well.
Yes, definitely.
It's something that is not maybe stressed enough. Yeah. But I think currently in the times of pandemics, it really becomes much clearer how much can we do, and we combine our heads together, and how much faster things could be moving. So
yes, you mentioned it clearly, but so producing a vaccine in a year or less than a year, that would have been possible, before if scientists across the globe wouldn't cooperate together.
Yeah, I'm very hopeful that this is the direction in which we will be going, and to kind of keep in our heads that, of course, we are doing basic science, but the translation of it to treating diseases and to coping with what is happening actually is a very important argument that we should keep somewhere in the back of our heads, to not get lost in the ego, because I think this is the problem in many cases.
Yeah, totally agree. And I also really hope that it's not just something that we as a scientists can emphasize, but also it's a political decisions, right? So that we get this environment to collaborate. Really, when I've heard about IST the first time, that's a campus where you have different departments close by. That was like, oh, that's amazing. You need to apply there, right?
I had the same feeling. Actually, looking for PhD, I wanted to have this interdisciplinarity, and I think it's great that more and more places start to do it.
That's really, like, I realized that for my project, right? I really appreciate so much working with different friends and colleagues across the campus.
Yeah.
And whenever I talk, I learn new stuff about my own project and realize it from different angles. And I'm like, oh, wow, I didn't think of that before. Thank you.
So your career for now has been actually really centered in Vienna. Have you considered going into another country for your PhD, or did you actually want to stay a bit more locally?
So I actually wanted to go abroad for my PhD and even actually for my bachelor, but I didn't have the permission to do it. So because, I came to Austria as a refugee, and I had this asylum status.
I
So,
see.
and with that, you're not allowed to. I mean, you can leave the country but not more than 3 months, right?
I see. So it
Yeah,
was just bureaucracy that was kind of
exactly.
keeping you here.
Yes, exactly. But I really wanted to go abroad and also experience a different culture in science. But yeah, that's what I will be hopefully doing for my postdoc.
So currently you are resident in Austria already?
Yes, so
Okay.
I got citizenship.
Great.
Now I can move freely.
This must have been quite challenging to get here, and I guess you weren't really speaking the language. It must have been quite hard to get through all of the steps, right?
Oh yeah, it was hard, but it was also joyful, It was this huge lesson, and I have to admit I learned so much during this process. But to be honest, I'm also thankful, for what I have experienced, because otherwise I wouldn't have been here where I am at the moment. I really enjoyed every single moment of it, with all the pain and happiness together, So yeah.
And how young were you when you arrived from Afghanistan to Austria?
I was 13 and a half when I came to Austria.
That's young. So is that one of the reasons that you are, I mean, I'm sure it's the reason, but like you are engaging in activities of these organizations that help the youth coming from Afghanistan to Austria?
Yes.
Maybe you could tell a bit more about what these associations are trying to achieve.
Yeah, so the association is called IGESUS.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an association of the Afghan students in Austria. So what we want, the first thing is to connect each other, to have a network, and then to help each other, like for those who are already at universities, that they help those who are still at school and be a mentee or mentor for them. And then what we want to do is also to be a bridge between these two cultures, right? So we also provide the community, our community, with helps in regard education system, because it's so complicated here.
Yeah, I
It's a
agree.
huge complex, and then we try to chop it up and like present it in a more simpler way. And also advise like the parents who are not that familiar with the system for their kid. We then take our time, guide them to certain schools, because there are these open days at schools. We advise them to also go there and have a look with their kids, and then decide together with their kids. And then also at the end of each school year, we have a celebration. Like we come together, and then celebrate all the success that each of us had gained during the past 9-10 months, and to also support each other, mentally, and also be there for each other. Let's put it that way. So yeah, that's what we do, like in this framework of IGESUS.
And you are one of the co-founders of the organization, right?
Yes. So back in 2013, when I graduated from high school and entered the university, so I realized actually that there is nothing such as an association where we could connect, and then join our forces to help the community. Yeah, we talked then with some friends and sat down and made some notes so what we could do, and that's how it got started. Then the association is officially, so to say, registered since 2015, I think. But yeah, the first 2 years it was like, okay, let's do all these works and make it ready to go public and so on.
It's very impressive. I guess the community is growing, right? With every year, and it must be for you also a very nice thing to see all these people going through this and their successes, and it must be quite.
That's super rewarding, for each of us. Like you do all these hard works during the year, and then at the end you come and see, wow, what everyone has achieved actually. That's so rewarding and also motivating, so to say. On the other side, what we really want to achieve with it is that, every one of us, if you want to, from the society, right, if you want to feel comfortable or feel home in Austria, we need to also call Austria home, right? If you want to participate in every decisions, like in the political decisions,
Yes.
and whatever things that happens in the society in this country matter us directly. So we want to also increase this perception.
Yeah,
of
the
that
assimilation into the
exactly
country. Okay.
Yes, that we are not a guest in this country, but rather this is our home, and everything that happens here is also affecting us directly. And we have to also raise our voices if politicians are, trying to misuse like certain society or migrants for their own benefits, right?
Yeah, this must be very challenging, right? I mean, from the perspective of a unit, from a perspective of a person changing the country and just kind of, as I said, like just learning the language and learning the culture is hard enough. But then when you have politicians that, I think Austria is also becoming much more right-wing currently. I know perspective from Poland, which is very anti-immigrants, and it's actually very upsetting how, the society's mindset is just very easily manipulated by, the media or the politicians. And then you get people who have never met anybody from outside of Poland, and they are already negatively, have negative feelings towards immigrants. I cannot even imagine feeling like this. Did you actually encounter any negativity because of your...
Yes. I mean, the very, like, one prominent example, right? 3-4 years ago, when my siblings and me, we were like, we wanted to go on holiday at the airport. This policeman was like, we showed our passport, and then he was asking, where do you go? And we're like, yeah, we go on vacation. So you as a migrant can, even can pay your vacation, and we here as an Austrian, we have to work hard and pay your vacation. I'm like, dude, what the heck are you talking? Yes. And I was so upset at that moment.
Yeah,
I was like, I really couldn't realize what this dude was talking about, right? And the same happened on our way back. Yes, they like made us wait for 30 minutes until all the others were gone. And then, okay, where were you? How many days did you spend there? How much money you had with yourself? How much money do you have right now? Do you work? And I was like, of course, we pay taxes. Oh, you should tell us that from the very beginning, then you wouldn't have to wait that long. And I was like, where do I live?
That's exactly what scares me the most, that you can talk to someone that has never even met anybody from any other country. Yes. And then they will still be negative, and they just repeat some sort of like stereotypes. I mean, it's very hurtful, and you have to have I guess a very thick skin, right, to push through this.
At that moment, I was like, oh, Mo, okay, hold on, wait for it. You will have your chance.
It's just so offensive. It really is.
It breaks you down, right? You live in a country where you really do your best for the success of this country.
Exactly, you are working for the paying the taxes, doing everything you can. And actually, I think you probably have been doing much, much more than some of the people that have been born here, because you wanted to be a part of it and you wanted to belong. Yeah. And the work that you had to do to become a part of it is actually much harder. And I guess this is the thing, that because there's a lot of discussion about immigrants and their assimilation. As I said, in Poland, it's really terrible, the way that it's handled. But also in Austria and in Germany, there's a lot of things that are running around about people who migrate and how they are not adapting. But then when you think about the environment that they encounter, that can be so hostile.
Yes.
And also it's super hard to join the two words, right? I mean, you don't want to become an Austrian citizen and forget about your identity. Mm-hmm. And I think the associations like yours really are important, because people should feel good with having the two words, joining them into some sort of thing that works for them, right? It's not like when you move and you become a citizen here, you should drop your whole culture and just, imitate everybody from here. Yeah, it's very hard to, I don't know, like, to even keep pushing, because I guess you had moments of doubts as well when you feel like everyone is against you. So I'm very impressed with how things are going for you. And I'm impressed with your, I want to say, like, positivity, because it's really something that I remember struck me at some point when I met you, that you're always so optimistic. And now talking to you, I see also that there's a lot of, that you are grateful for a lot of things, which is even more impressive. But I guess this is the better way to handle this kind of hard things.
Yeah, I think, of course, life is hard, right? So if you just keep thinking about the negative aspects of it and how things are terrible, we would maybe make it forward, but we would be broken during that path. But life is short, and we should enjoy it. We should share the moments with our beloveds and with people around us. And why just not having a good time with each other, rather than, I don't know, being upset and being a pessimist because things are not working the way they should. But yeah, I think both sadness and happiness belongs together. One without the other is not really that joyful. And so, at least to me.
Yeah, I think the appreciation is even bigger if you had also the darker sides and darker times. Yeah. You just gain the perspective, as we keep mentioning.
And with everyone I meet, right, and talk, I learn new stuff about myself, about that person, the culture, the language, the attitudes. I really appreciate that, and it really is joyful for me. There's really one story that I want to tell. When I came to Austria at the very beginning, so I had a lot of surgeries. So back then I was in the secondary school, but I was still living in a camp, like in a refugee camp. The school was maybe around 15 minutes or 20 minutes by walk, but I couldn't walk because, I had this operation and I had to either use the crutch or sitting on a wheelchair.
Yes.
So my director from that high school, he said that he will pick me up every day from the camp, bring me to school so that I can participate, and then bring me back to the camp. And he did it every single day.
That's amazing.
And how you can't be touched, by,
so
by
much
people
goodness
like,
and
yes, that is, I'm so grateful to everyone I meet, right? To everyone I get the chance to talk, because it just shows how beautiful life can be if you just take the positive aspects of it into account without thinking about your own, I don't know, without being ego. And also, I have also an Austrian family. When I came to Austria, like after 6 months, so we got to know each other. And they're my family, right? They're like a second family as my biological family. So I was living with them together for 2 years until my family came to Austria, and they were there for me 24/7. They helped me like to learn the language,
That's
to
amazing.
cope, to learn the society, the culture, and to move forward, to finish my school and then go to this technical school. I owe those people so much, to be honest, because they did so many things for me. And without those people, I'm sure I wouldn't be possible to be here today. And that's why I'm so, positive all the time, because because I realized in my own person what it does when you get like so much positive energy. And I hope that I can just do a little bit, convey a little bit positivity by just being, optimistic on my daily basis. So
yeah, it's very heartwarming for me, and I think both your families must be extremely proud of you also, and of the man that you've become, and how you're growing, because you're still, going farther and farther, and this is really, this is really great. Oh my God, I feel very emotional at this point.
no, I just wanted to share,
Yeah, it's just we sometimes get so focused on our self-pity. Let's call
Yes.
it like this. Not even ego, but just like bad things happen, and then you get overwhelmed, and this is normal.
Yeah.
But then it's important exactly to find the strength to use this, because these things can make you stronger and can help you move forward. I mean, I didn't have experience even close to yours, like far from it. But I also had a bit of a, let's call it, turbulent childhood, because I lost my mom very young. And I feel like when I meet people, they hear this and they feel bad. But I actually feel like it made me really strong. Of course, it was a bad experience, but then, yeah, you take whatever good you can take from it. And I took my strength from it, and I took my, ability to maybe see the world a bit differently.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to have this as a bit of a push instead of something dragging you down.
Yeah.
I find it great that we could share this with each other.
Yeah, thank you for sharing it. I think, that is like the way how I think we should think of sad things, can really drag us down, but sad things can also, depending on how you want to perceive it, it can also push you a lot. Of course, it's a very sad moment, but you can, take so much from it, and
exactly.
to move forward.
I really think there is no way to avoid bad things from happening. And if this last year taught us anything, it's just like anybody can be hit by it. It's difficult sometimes to get through these moments, and that's why we need other people around. And we also need to speak about it, because as you said at the beginning, it's kind of, you can feel like you're alone in this, because everybody's experience is so different, but actually the emotions and the things that we're going through are similar.
Yes.
And it can resonate with someone who's going through something completely different, but actually needed to hear that they can make it and it will be better.
Yeah.
So I'm glad we could send this message through, to focus on the good things that you can take from the bad stuff that happen. I think that your idea to join the things that you're learning now about the technology development and the topic that is close to you, which is cancer, to kind of go in this direction for your postdoc is really nice. And I think it's a very cool thing to do. You also said that you are thinking about staying in academia more seriously. So I guess besides your laboratory work, you're also thoughtful about the steps that you're taking in your career and the skills that you need to have to be successful in academia. I am also considering it, and the very good way to learn is from our friends and colleagues and PIs and supervisors. But what I like to ask my guest is, maybe if you could give advice to someone that is currently looking for their PhD or thinking about career in science, what would you think is something that people should focus on outside of, laboratory work and outside of building your very typical technical skills? What would you consider to be important to think about already early on to make it easier or to make it just better?
For me personally, it's important that you enjoy what you do. it's not about really, maybe not primarily about whom you're working with, but it's really, do you like it, what you do or not? Whatever it is, you should do it with your heart in the first place, and then with your brain, because the brain, you will need it anyway, but the heart comes first. And if you don't, at least it's really for me, okay, if I want to do anything, I need to be with my heart first there, and then with my brain. And of course, if both, then it's
even better.
Even better, exactly. Think about it, do internships as many as possible, like every summer, because back then during my high school, I was really doing internships during the summer break, every summer break. And I learned so much. So also I learned that whether I like that topic or I don't like that topic. So that is one thing. So openness, be open to it, and don't restrict yourself to a certain thing, because science is changing so fast. Yeah, and then talk with your colleagues, with your mentors, with your supervisors, with your friends, best friends, about your feelings, how you feel about that job or the science that you do. Because, as you said, we all go through the same thing.
Yeah.
We most of the time think, oh, we are the only one who is going through this horrible time. But honestly, all of us go through, but we never talk to each other.
Oh,
and
100%.
that is like, but when we talk, we feel so relieved and we feel so happy afterwards. Yes. So yeah, talking, like, be open and be communicative. I think these things helped me a lot, to be honest.
And I think it's good to know it as early on as you can. As you said, the imposter syndrome, for example, hits every one of us. And
Yes.
if there's one thing that this podcast showed me, is that it really touches every one of us. And it's actually, it's a bit sad, but on the other hand, it's something that really we have in common.
Yeah.
And somehow when it hits, we feel like we're the only one that really is that bad. Or it's good to build relationships with people.
Yes, I think that we human beings are super good in hiding our emotions sometimes, right?
Yeah.
We try to be, we are the one that can do it alone. We don't need each other, but actually on the opposite, we need each other, right? And especially since we're so emotional, if we keep those emotions inside ourselves, those are gonna explode so heavily that we will not be able to collect us back. That's why really talking, don't keep stuff inside ourselves.
We talk about the sharing the emotions and dealing with the emotions, which is an important part, especially during the PhD, because it is a long run, if not a marathon, and there are ups and downs. And I was wondering, how do you, except for talking, how do you deal with this? How do you deal with the mixed emotions? And do you have any hobbies that keep you grounded outside of work? Physical activity you mentioned, right? So probably also this?
Yes, so I do a lot of sports. And then PhD is not the only thing, it's not the only thing in your life. You have so many other things to also take care of, especially yourself. We have to be aware of ourselves, aware of our own emotions. We should really take the time for us, go through our emotions and realize those emotions, what they are, and then also try to work with them. That really helps me a lot. I really take the time for myself to go through it, be it like just 30 minutes walk through the city, right? Or I don't know, when you go for a run, or when you go for biking, or whatever it is. The other thing is social activities. You're not only focused on the PhD on your project, but also other type of rewarding activities. If I say rewarding, it shouldn't mean that okay, we should do only things that are rewarding, but I mean, social activities are rewarding in the sense that when you help people, when you want to give back something to the society, that really also makes you a little bit feel happier and emotionally stable. So that is what helps me also a lot. So as you said, like we have these initiatives where we meet each other on a regular basis, we talk to each other, communicate. And also beside that, I try to be involved in other type of social activities with NGOs, for example, to share my experience with them. That really balanced me, let's say, my life outside of academia.
I think you touch upon something very important, which is that we shouldn't really think about our value just with the view of our research work.
Yes.
And this is something that, when it's good, it's good. But then when it's bad and work is not going well, or you have problems with experiments, suddenly you feel like, you're not worth much, which is not a very good feeling. And having things that give you a sense of belonging and a sense of value outside of your work, because it is still work. I mean, we are very committed to science, otherwise we wouldn't do this.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't be the whole thing that determines your value. I completely agree.
Yes, definitely.
As you said, you listen to the podcast, so you know that I have this part that I call room for improvement, where I like to ask my guests what do they see as a problem in science, in academia.
So what I really miss is gender balance, women empowerment in science. I mean, if you see the faculty positions, okay,
it's terrible.
It is terrible. So I think each of us as a scientist, or not as a scientist, as a human being, this should be our responsibility to, fight for it. The other thing is we need to make sure that every one of us also feel comfortable at the workspace, right? That there's no sign of sexism, that everybody has his or her own private space also, right? Mm-hmm. That there should be definitely a dedicated person to whom one can talk anonymously without facing the consequence of being fired or whatever, right? This is something that we definitely need improvement.
And I know you're working with Nicole in the STEM Fatale as well to increase the people's awareness about this imbalances, which is really important. I completely agree. I mean, IST is doing pretty well with that. Yes. And because of this, we feel like we're in this a bit of a bubble. But we have to fight to make it a more general thing and not just selected institutions that actually have it. And
one other thing is science communication, right? And that's also what STEM Fatale does. So gender balance and science communication. So we are in our own bubble, right? We are really at the front of science. We do it ourselves, but we have to communicate it to the society as easily as possible. This is our responsibility as scientists.
Yeah, exactly. We have the obligation.
Whatever we do, yes, we need to communicate it. We need to, talk about this very openly and clearly in a simple manner to the society. So that is also, and there is definitely room for improvement.
It's important, but it is challenging, and I feel like we could all use more training in this. Mm-hmm. Like our education can be very, very thoughtful and can be very packed with a lot of knowledge about, the processes or the biology and chemistry, but then I think we are missing in our training more insight into how to do it properly. Because of course some people just have it. They would be very good at speaking about it. But I think one of the things that I liked at IST was that in the first year we had this interdisciplinary things and you had to talk to people from other disciplines who are still scientists, but you had to explain your work and you had to kind of collaborate. And this already was teaching us how to simplify and how to put things in perspective for someone who is not a biologist.
Mm-hmm.
But then still, I feel like, we should be encouraged, and we should also have maybe a bit more resources to learn how to do it, to practice how to do it.
We have this Zuma scientist, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Which is one step, but I really wish and hope that, at the Institute, we get more opportunities like that, that we go out and communicate what we really do. If IST listens to this podcast, I really encourage them to really also, work on that side a little bit more. Because at the end of the day, seriously, when we do this science, if the society is not aware of what we do and don't understand it, they will not have that much understanding for, so many other things. So if we do our job, then I'm sure that also society will do its job.
I agree. The last thing is a bit more relaxing, 2 questions. One is about your dream cool science. And this, I'm very interested in what you will say. But basically imagine that you have unlimited resources, either money-wise or even technology-wise. And you could just do something that you've always wanted to do. What would you work on, or what would it be?
Of course, saving the world,
Small goals.
Exactly. So my interest is cancer research, and especially like brain cancer research. Mm-hmm. I would like to combine, as I said, like different disciplines, make it possible for the different departments to collaborate and work on questions from different angles, like a collaborative environment I would create. I think there we can really get most out of it when there are different disciplines collaborating, instead of only giving it to neuroscientists.
And to move faster forward, right?
Yes. And also, about my project, when I design or when we, for example, develop methods, for me, it's really important that it is easily accessible to the community, because not everyone has €1 million to buy a microscope. Not everyone has €1 million to do all the single cell sequencing. Not everyone has €1 million to, do all this fancy stuff. But when we develop something, we definitely need to keep that in mind, that there are so many other groups around the globe that don't have that much money, but they would love to, and they have this capability, capability to do cool science. The technologies that are developed, they should be cheap, easily accessible. That is really, for me at least, very important.
Okay, last question was about the dinner. And I'm curious, so if you could chat, have dinner, tea, coffee, whatever you want, with someone that is an inspiration to you or someone that you've looked up to, who would it be? It can be someone that is no longer living as well.
I think with my mom in a sense that, she went through so much, and yet she is so stable, so confident still, and so much full of energy. You seriously don't see that she gone through so much. When you talk to her, she still has her smile, She's really an inspiration to me in that sense, because what she taught me is, life can be super hard. It can break you down, but it depends on you whether you want to stand up and move forward, or you want to still keep sitting. I think I would first go with my mom and then with my grandma.
Oh, that's...
I learned so much from both of them. Like from my grandma, she was basically raising me. Seriously, I need them in my daily basis at the moment and in the past, and I will need them in the future. And from my mom, so I owe them so much in my life. I would go with them for dinner.
That's lovely. with this positive thought, I think we are done. And I wanted to thank you again, for agreeing to do this and for being so honest and so open about your life and your story. I'm very happy we did this. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I really enjoyed it, and I really learned so much from from this podcast. No, seriously, every time when I listen, there are so many new elements in it, and to share, to listen to others' story, and you make it possible with your platform, right? It's a huge contribution that we all go through the same difficulties, but we need to talk to each other.
Yeah,
right? We need each other. We need to support each other, and just being positive and
let's leave the listeners with it. Talk to each other and listen to each other as well.
Exactly. Yes.
Thanks a lot, Mo.
Yeah, thank you so much.